Usually when we talk about high-stakes technological operations, we picture, sterile server rooms, glowing blue lights, fingerprint scanners, maybe a team of engineers staring intently at massive
Oh,
monitors.
absolutely. Highly controlled environments where every single variable is monitored and accounted for.
Hmm.
Complete unbroken focus.
Right. But one of the most brilliant little tech deployments we are diving into today happened not in a server room, but in a chaotic family kitchen. And the soundtrack wasn't the steady hum of cooling fans, but, well, the sound of boiling rice and a teenager desperately trying to roll meatballs.
It is the absolute definition of a real-world, messy, incredibly relatable tech lab.
It really is. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are so glad to have you with us. Our mission today is all about unraveling just how incredibly simple and accessible open source technology has become. But we aren't reading a dry tech manual to figure this out.
No, definitely not.
We are exploring this through a delightfully quirky narrative guide affectionately titled BMK, which stands for Bowler Med Carry, or Meatballs with Curry.
Yeah, it's a real-world scenario featuring two teenagers pulling a fast one on dinner duty to execute a stealthy tech installation. So with a household calendar, it is officially food day.
The dreaded food day.
Exactly. That means it is our protagonists, Steen and Kesser's, turn to shop for and cook dinner under parental supervision. And the menu is Bowler Eye Carry, which just so happens to be Steen's dad's favorite dish.
Okay, let's unpack this, because Steen has completely outmaneuvered the household system here. He has invited his friend Kesser over, armed him with some cooking advice from Oma, that's the grandmother, and essentially outsourced the entire physical act of cooking to him.
He really did.
While Kesser is elbow deep in raw meat and curry powder, Steen has skipped his dinner-making duties entirely to focus on a secret tech project involving an old-school computer and his dad's extra USB drive.
It's a highly calculated delegation of resources. Steen needs this specific, uninterrupted window of time before dinner hits the table because he has a very precise tech agenda to pull off.
But knowing they want to build a tech project doesn't explain why Kesser is taking on all the culinary stress. I mean, what is the actual strategy behind dodging the meatballs?
Well, it really comes down to securing funding.
Hmm.
Steen and Kesser desperately want a piece of hardware called a Raspberry Pi 5.
Ah, right.
Yeah, which is a hugely popular single-board computer. Tech enthusiasts use them for building everything from retro gaming consoles to smart home hubs, but they need parental permission and likely parental funding to actually get one. And they know if they just ask, they'll probably just get a flat no.
Because to a parent who isn't deep into tech, a naked circuit board probably just looks like, an expensive way to break something or waste time. So Steen has engineered a master plan.
Yes.
He figures if he can use this window of time to show his dad how amazingly easy it is to run an entire operating system off a simple USB stick, his dad might actually get hooked on the technology. If he demystifies it, the dad might finally greenlight the purchase.
What's fascinating here is that this is a classic approach to change management. Think about how organizations try to roll out new software. It's often forced, disruptive, and met with massive resistance from the users.
Oh, totally. People hate changing their workflow.
Right. But Steen, however, is leveraging a completely low-risk sandbox environment. He is using an old-school computer that nobody cares about and a spare flash drive. He is introducing a totally new paradigm to a skeptic without threatening his dad's daily workflow at all.
Which is a highly effective strategy for driving innovation. You create a space where the skeptic can play without fear. It's essentially a technological Trojan horse.
I like that.
Instead of Greek soldiers sneaking into Troy inside a giant wooden horse, it's a stealthy tech demonstration hidden safely behind the irresistible, comforting aroma of his dad's favorite meal.
Kesser does have a moment of doubt, though. He points out to Steen that if this tech is finicky-like, if it lags or throws error codes while the dad is testing it, the dad is just going to lose his patience and the whole plan will backfire spectacularly.
And Steen's comeback is lightning fast and honestly hilarious. He essentially says that if the tech frustrates him, maybe the dad will just stop interfering in tech stuff he doesn't understand anyway.
Yeah, a very pragmatic, if slightly cynical, teenage perspective.
It's a win-win for a teenager. Either he gets the dad on board, or he gets the dad to back off completely. But the clock is ticking on this sandbox.
Oh.
Since Steen only has the time it takes for Kesser to cook dinner, speed is absolutely of the essence.
Definitely.
Steen confidently claims that this entire operating system installation won't take any longer than boiling a portion of rice, which, I mean, is a remarkably bold claim for installing an OS.
It is bold.
Yeah.
So to see if that timeline holds up, we have to look at exactly what they are installing. They are grabbing a specific version of Linux called Linux Mint Cinnamon 22.3, which goes by the code name Xena.
Xena! I love the code names in Linux.
They are great, and according to our sources, this is roughly a 3 gigabyte file. It's also an LTS release, meaning long-term support.
Okay, so what does that mean for the dad?
Well, it means if Steen's dad actually likes the interface, the system will receive critical security updates and kernel patches all the way until April 2029. That stability is crucial when pitching tech to a skeptic.
Right.
And Linux Mint is heavily favored for these types of demonstrations because the Cinnamon desktop environment visually resembles classic Windows layouts. It has a familiar start menu, a taskbar at the bottom, desktop icons.
So the dad won't have to learn a completely alien interface just to use the machine.
Exactly.
Huh.
But the boys are purposefully keeping this quick. They aren't going to do a massive deep dive tutorial for the dad tonight because Linux Mint version 23 is anticipated to drop very soon around July or August of this year. So this is really just the appetizer.
The meatball appetizer.
Yes, exactly.
Even masterminds make mistakes during the prep work, though. Our source shares a very relatable tech blunder from Steen here. He uses a search engine to look up this new version of Linux Mint, and he's genuinely amazed that the search engine intuitively suggests the exact download link he needs right at the top of the results.
Yeah, a far cry from the old days of scouring sketchy forums for broken download mirrors.
Seriously. But in his excitement, he accidentally double-clicks the download button and starts 2 identical 3 gigabyte downloads simultaneously on this old-school computer.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he quickly realizes his bandwidth is being halved, cancels the second one, and gets the single image file safely into his downloads folder.
You know, the source material actually includes a very charming visual element here. It's an illustration of Tux the penguin, the famous mascot of the Linux kernel, casually sitting on top of a silver USB flash drive. It's a deliberate visual metaphor for what they're trying to achieve.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. Between meatballs with curry, a desktop environment called Cinnamon, and the different flavors of Linux, is the tech world just perpetually hungry?
It certainly seems that way, yeah.
But let's dig into that image file concept you mentioned, because this is where a lot of casual users get tripped up. He didn't just download a regular zip folder full of applications, right?
Right. An image file, often an ISO file, is a fundamentally different beast. It is an exact sector-by-sector replica of a physical drive structure.
Okay.
If you look at how a hard drive stores data, it isn't just a messy pile of files floating around. The data is organized meticulously into physical sectors with a very specific deep-level hierarchy that tells the computer's lowest-level hardware how to read it.
So if you just dragged and dropped 3 gigabytes of loose Linux files onto a USB stick, the computer's motherboard would look at it and say, I have no idea what this is.
Exactly. It lacks that fundamental architectural map. An image file contains the deep architecture required to actually boot a machine. That is why Tux the penguin sitting on the USB drive perfectly symbolizes the ultimate portability of this specific operating system.
You aren't just putting a program on a stick, you are putting an entire self-contained computing universe on that stick. But you still have to unpack that universe. The computer currently just sees that ISO file in the downloads folder as a giant, useless block of solid data. We need a tool to bridge the gap, which is where a tiny executable program called Rufus comes into play.
Rufus is the utility that takes a standard storage USB and transforms it into a bootable drive. It is remarkably lightweight. Steen doesn't even need to heavily install it deep into the Windows registry. It just runs as a standalone executable.
That's super convenient.
Very. He selects the dad's USB drive from a drop-down menu, selects the Linux Xena image he just downloaded, and hits install.
Our source points out a really interesting technical hurdle right here. The dad's USB drive wasn't just a blank slate open warehouse. It actually had multiple partitions on it already. These partitions act like invisible walls that divide a single physical drive into multiple smaller virtual drives.
Right, and if a computer's basic input and output system is looking for boot instructions, running into unexpected partition walls and fragmented file systems will cause it to just give up and fail the boot process entirely.
But Rufus automatically handles this. It acts like a brilliant translator. If the computer only speaks English and the new OS is in French, Rufus formats the pages so the computer knows exactly how to read the new language the second it wakes up.
It automatically wipes out the old master boot record, knocks down those invisible partition walls, formats a fresh file system, and perfectly unpacks the Linux image into it.
It creates the boot sector.
Exactly. For a computer to boot from a drive, the hardware checks the very first 512 bytes of that drive, looking for a specific signature. Rufus ensures that signature is perfectly placed.
So Steen is executing this flawless, fast-as-boiling rice plan. The progress bar is zooming across the screen, but then reality strikes.
Oh, did it ever.
The old-school Windows PC that they're using decides that now, at this exact critical moment, is the perfect time to run its own forced, completely unrelated Windows updates.
The dreaded spinning circle of do not turn off your computer.
Yes, Steen's perfect timeline is ruined. He has to sit there, practice extreme patience, restart Windows, and just watch it configure updates before he can reboot the machine for his own project.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this moment of supreme frustration perfectly encapsulates a major philosophical divide in the tech world. Think about the sleek, user-controlled experience Steen just had downloading and preparing Linux.
Right.
He chose the version, he chose the tool, he executed it on his exact schedule. Contrast that with the forced, out-of-your-control nature of that Windows update hijacking the machine. It highlights exactly why power users often prefer open-source systems where they control the schedule.
I mean, I will play devil's advocate here, though. To be fair to Windows, forced updates exist because the vast majority of users don't want to be the pilot. They want the airline to handle all the maintenance in the background so the plane doesn't crash from an unpatched security vulnerability.
That is a very fair point.
But to your point, Steen isn't a standard user here. He's actively trying to build a custom environment. He wants his hands on the controls. So sitting through that forced update when he just wants to test his USB is agonizing.
Eventually, though, the agonizing updates do finish. The rice in the kitchen is probably almost cooked, Kesser is plating the meatballs, and it's time for the moment of truth to see if the newly formatted USB actually works.
Steen restarts the school computer, but this time, he's ready. As the screen goes black, he starts pressing specific keys during the startup sequence. He is actively intercepting the boot process.
Yes, he is telling the machine's lowest level brain, the BIOS or UEFI, to ignore the internal hard drive where Windows lives, and instead redirect its attention to the USB bus to boot directly from the flash drive.
And depending on the manufacturer, this can be tricky, right?
Oh, very. Sometimes you have to mash the F12 key or the delete key to bring up a boot menu, or even dig into the complex BIOS settings to permanently change the boot order priorities. But fortunately for Kesser and Steen, it works perfectly on the first try.
The screen goes dark for a second, and then the payoff. The screen lights up with the vibrant green Linux Mint logo. They have officially done it. They are running a completely different computer operating system, entirely from a pocket-sized USB stick.
It is a profound moment of technical empowerment. Windows is completely dormant on the hard drive. It has absolutely no idea what is happening. They have a fully functioning desktop environment ready for the dad to explore.
But the sources include a massive caveat right at this moment of triumph. Once you are looking at that beautiful new Linux desktop, there is an icon sitting ominously right there in the top left corner, and it simply says install.
Yes.
So what does this all mean? If running it from the USB is safe, is that desktop icon basically a shiny red button that says wipe my past away?
It absolutely is. We must impartially warn anyone listening who wants to try this. Running the operating system directly off the USB drive, what is known as the live USB environment, is completely safe because the entire operating system is actually running in the computer's RAM.
It's random access memory.
Right. And RAM only holds data while it has continuous electrical power. The system builds a temporary virtual disk in the RAM to run the desktop smoothly.
So the second you shut the computer down and pull the USB out, power to the RAM is cut, and it is instantly cleared. The Linux session just vanishes like a ghost.
Exactly. The internal hard drive with Windows on it was never touched. Running off the USB is a safe test drive.
However, clicking that specific install icon on the desktop initiates a completely different permanent process.
That icon launches an installer designed to take Linux off the USB and write it permanently onto the computer's physical internal hard drive. It will layer Linux over the existing system permanently.
It will destroy the Windows partition, erase the family photos, overwrite the documents. There is no going back from that. It requires critical thinking and absolute certainty before clicking.
The live USB is for exploring. The install button is for committing.
Explore with the stick, commit with the click. To bring this incredible narrative full circle, Steen's master plan was a resounding success. He successfully dodged making the curry meatballs, let Kesser handle all the culinary stress, and managed to install Linux Mint Xena onto his dad's USB drive.
And despite the agonizing Windows Update interruption, he accomplished the actual installation in roughly the time it takes to boil a pot of rice.
They now have the perfect, entirely risk-free demonstration sitting on that desk. It's the perfect pitch to hopefully win their dad over, demystify the tech, and finally secure that Raspberry Pi 5 they've been dreaming of.
It's a real testament to how far portable technology has come.
So why does this whole kitchen and tech caper matter to you, the listener? Because it proves, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that experimenting with your technology isn't some dark art reserved only for IT professionals. You can literally carry an entire secure operating system right in your pocket.
You really can.
You can plug it into almost any machine you encounter and test drive a completely new digital environment without altering a single file on the host computer.
Which flips the whole hardware model we used to completely on its head.
It really does. And I want to leave you with something to ponder that wasn't explicitly discussed in the guide, but builds on this whole concept. If an entire personalized computing ecosystem, your desktop, your apps, your files, can be booted up from a tiny flash drive on any borrowed or generic screen, what does it actually mean to own a computer anymore?
That is a fascinating question.
Right. Is the expensive hardware sitting on our desks just an empty, interchangeable vessel waiting for the digital soul we carry in our pockets? Once you pull the USB out, the screen and the keyboard are just temporary, lifeless shells again.
It makes you look at your laptop completely differently.
It certainly does. Next time you smell dinner cooking, remember someone might just be rebuilding a boot sector in the other room. We'll see you next time.